Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through stacks of interesting sources to figure out what really matters. Today we're grappling with this really compelling idea. What if extraordinary isn't quite as, well, out there as we think? You know, we tend to picture greatness as something reserved for, I don't know, historical figures, geniuses maybe. But our mission today is to really dig into what defines that kind of impact and maybe uncover some surprisingly practical ways ordinary people achieve, well, extraordinary things.
That's exactly right. We're aiming to unpack how things like determination, resilience, attributes that maybe get overlooked,
Sure.
allow people to rise above their circumstances and make these really profound impacts. And like you said, it's not always global stuff, is it? Sometimes it's deeply personal, transforming a life, a community, or even, your own career path. So we'll look at different kinds of extraordinary success today, from those quieter wins maybe you don't hear about, to these huge world-changing movements that maybe surprisingly started with just one person, one single act.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that. Our first source is called 10 Inspiring Stories of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. And it immediately kind of pushes back against that big hero idea. It's all about everyday folks who, just through sheer will, really changed their lives and their communities. So what's really driving these stories? What makes them so powerful, more than just, feeling good?
Well, what's really interesting here is that, yeah, they aren't about grand speeches or inherited power. They really showcase determination, resilience, that indomitable human spirit we talk about. But maybe digging a bit deeper, it's not just some vague spirit. Often it seems to come down to redefining adversity. Like, fundamentally, for a lot of these people, challenges weren't just obstacles. They were catalysts. They didn't just try harder. They actually changed how they related to what seemed impossible.
That's a great point. Like Sarah in the article,
Yeah.
she went through homelessness, right? But didn't see it as the end. It sort of forged this crafting business she built. And now her success empowers others, inspires them.
Right.
Or James, the engineer, instead of just, I don't know, designing typical things, he focused on bringing clean water to remote places, developed these new filtration systems, literally saving lives, restoring hope, not just health.
Exactly.
And then there's Emma. She saw kids struggling with literacy in her own neighborhood and started this whole grassroots thing, libraries, reading programs.
Yeah.
It's planting seeds, really, for long-term change.
And you see it overcoming really personal stuff, too, like Miguel. Born with a physical disability, becomes this accomplished athlete. And the insight there, I think, isn't just the physical part. It's the unwavering determination. It's maybe a different kind of self-talk, refusing limits others might put on you.
Right.
And Anna using her own struggles with mental health to become this fierce advocate, destigmatizing illness through speaking, social media, turning vulnerability into a strength.
Powerful.
And Carlos, too, choosing forgiveness after something truly tragic. Founding an organization for peaceful conflict resolution. These are such personal journeys, like you said, but they ripple out. They really do.
It's just incredible how these things are driven by such deep personal passion, commitment. It's rarely about, fame or money. It's about making a real difference you can see.
So, okay, if these individual sparks can ignite that much change personally or in a community, how does that same idea play out bigger, on a historical stage?
Yeah, that's where it gets fascinating, too.
Yeah.
Because some of the biggest shifts in history really seem to start with small actions by people you wouldn't expect. It makes you think, doesn't it? Sometimes the biggest waves start really, really quietly.
And our second source, 15 People Who Changed the World in History, totally hammers that home. It reminds you, world changers aren't always obvious. They can be, like it says, housewives, security guards, students, people without traditional power, maybe, but with this incredible conviction. Absolutely. Think about Rosa Parks. Tired after work, 1955, simply refuses to give up her seat. Now, it wasn't just her courage, though that was immense. It was like the perfect expression of a collective feeling right at that moment.
The timing.
Exactly. That simple act tapped into the shared frustration that was already simmering, led to the Montgomery bus boycott, a massive turning point in civil rights, or Mohamed Bouazizi, the Tunisian street vendor. His desperate act in 2010, it sparked the Arab Spring, toppled regimes across the region. The insight often seems to be in that timing and the way the act unites people.
And Candy Lightner, a mom whose daughter was killed by a repeat drunk driver. In her grief, she starts Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, right from her home.
Wow.
No political connections, nothing. But she completely changed how America saw drunk driving, changed laws.
Incredible.
Then there's Frank Wills, security guard. Watergate building. Notices tape on a door lock. Just a tiny detail leads all the way to Nixon resigning. Or Lois Gibbs, a housewife in the 70s, discovers her neighborhood, Love Canal,
Oh, I know this
is
story.
built on toxic waste. She starts this movement, basically forces the creation of the EPA Superfund program.
Just amazing examples. And don't forget Sir Tim Berners-Lee, described as just an average British computer scientist.
Right.
He proposes this project combining hypertext and the internet, and boom, the World Wide Web, which we all rely on every single day. It wasn't some grand government project initially, just his idea.
Yeah.
Then Malala Yousafzai. As a young girl in Pakistan speaking out against the Taliban banning girls from school, gets shot for it, survives, becomes the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner ever.
Such courage.
Her defiance just amplified a basic human right.
And Misty Copeland, breaking barriers in ballet.
Yes. Defying norms, her background. Becoming the first African-American principal dancer at ABT, providing that crucial representation just by being excellent, by refusing to be limited. What's really striking here is how these acts, almost randomly it feels sometimes, become these tipping points. It makes you wonder how many similar acts didn't catch fire.
Good question.
And what does that say about the readiness, maybe, and the collective mind that allows some actions to resonate so powerfully?
Right.
It's clear these people didn't just act. They challenged assumptions. They sparked movements, often from places you wouldn't expect, which leads to a really important question, I think. What seemingly ordinary moments today might be shaping our future, right now, even if we don't see it yet?
That is a brilliant question. And it kind of shifts our view, doesn't it? From those huge historical moments to something maybe more immediate, more relevant to our own lives day to day. We've looked at history changers, but what about extraordinary within the everyday grind? For a lot of us, maybe the goal isn't changing the whole world, but achieving, real sustained success in our careers. So how do those same principles, that ordinary to extraordinary thing, apply there? Our third source, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Success, gets right into that. It looks at specific traits for career success, using this example of a guy named Rahman.
Yes, Ramon's story is super relevant, I think, because it's not about becoming a billionaire or inventing the next big thing. It's about significant, steady growth, achieved through qualities we can actually identify with, qualities that are, frankly, available to most people in their jobs. He kind of represents that success that comes from focused, consistent effort, not just luck, not just genius.
And the attributes are, honestly, surprisingly simple. Almost basic, Rahman's success, it says, started with his attitude. Willing to put in extra time, ask questions, show curiosity, right from the start. While others maybe complained, he just got on with it. And he had this incredible openness to feedback, welcomed criticism to get better, didn't take it personally.
That's huge. We all hear that advice, right? Be open to feedback.
Yeah.
But the insight here is the discipline to actually internalize it consistently, not just nod along.
He also kept this unwavering focus on his goals, his customers, keeping promises, didn't get bogged down in office politics or minor complaints.
Avoided the noise.
Exactly. And his proactiveness was key. Never avoided work, even recorded his own cold calls to learn from them.
That's dedication. When I read about his 24/7 job mindset, my first reaction was kind of, oh no, more hustle culture pressure.
Yeah, me too.
But then you see, it wasn't just about hours. It was genuine curiosity, ownership. It's a different way of thinking, not just putting in time.
Which brings us straight to ownership. Rahman just decided to own the customer experience, end to end. He'd pull together internal teams, service delivery, whoever was needed to support him, supporting the customer. Never said, that's not my job. If it touched his customer, it was his problem to solve.
That builds trust.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it connects to his follow-through. He always closed the loop
Yeah.
on promises to customers, promises internally, even tiny details like matching fonts in a document.
Wow. That level of detail.
That meticulousness, right, builds huge credibility over time.
And his persistence sounds legendary, a don't take no for an answer vibe, but mixed with humility, he wasn't afraid to ask again or ask for help when he hit a wall.
Right, even later in his career.
It's like tenacity, but also strategic vulnerability, knowing when you need backup.
Yeah.
And finally, the source really highlights his kind of old-fashioned values. Honesty, sincerity, hard work. Simple stuff, yeah. But the real insight is maybe why so few people apply them consistently, and how Rahman mastered that discipline. The discipline of simplicity, really, to get powerful results.
It really is striking. These aren't complex theories, they're basic habits.
Yeah.
The consistent mindset. And these traits, let him grow steadily, build these strong, respectful relationships inside his company, all without constantly jumping ship for the next pay rise.
Yeah.
It just shows how those simple ingredients applied over time can lead to really significant lasting success in
No.
your own life, not just for the history book figures.
I think what's really illuminating, tying it all together, is that whether we're talking groundbreaking inventions or acts of defiance or dedicated community work or just consistent professional excellence, that extraordinary potential often lies dormant within the seemingly ordinary. The knowledge is out there, but it only becomes valuable when it's understood, internalized, and actually applied.
And that really is the big takeaway for you
Yeah.
listening, the power to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's huge and historical or quiet and sustained personal growth, it's within reach. It resides in us. It's not about being famous or having some special destiny. It's about those daily choices, that quiet determination,
Yeah.
that willingness to step up when you see something. Makes you think about all those times we see a problem and think, someone should fix that.
Yeah.
These stories really remind us that someone else could actually be us. So we'll leave you with this to think about. What ordinary action, maybe something small, might you take today that could start an extraordinary ripple for yourself or maybe even for the world around you?